Now here's a quick shot of my packing bench and the next item I'll be packing. Well, I'm out in the packing room near the packing bench. I keep my oldest Mac here on a rolling cart, and it's what I use to print my labels. We use a Rollo label printer. In fact, I recently bought a second one. I liked them so much. This will be the next item I'm packing, and it has an interesting backstory. It's a 12-inch diameter cap for green septic PVC. And you notice my initial quantity was 4. I've sold one. I'll be packing another one today. Very expensive items relative to what they are. I think new this would run a buyer about $100. I needed some of these a while back. Ended up with them and then didn't use them for the project I had planned. So they're new old stock. They're going up on eBay. And at this size, it's interesting because I'll end up cutting down a box. All right, let me go pull this from the area it's stored in. Now here's a quick shot of my packing bench and the next item I'll be packing. The drawers underneath hold poly mailers, and over here on the side I've got a wire metro shelf where I keep some of my ready supplies. But, and of course clutter appears here and there. There's some cutoffs and little bits of scrap bubble mailer that I use, and when I have some excess I set it aside and use it for a small item that I'll be packing. But this is a 12-inch PVC fitting. You can see it here. So you can see that even though I had 4 of these caps initially, I decided because they had enough value to sell them individually. This one is going to bring me gross, $68.79. And I charged $12.79 for shipping. Now, I'm not sure that'll actually be sufficient, but it was when the listing went up. But the way the post office has been upping the rates every so often, it may be a little under. But I have virtually nothing into these caps. So if I have to take a little bit from the profit side to cover the extra shipping, so be it. It still kept the buyer's price down to a reasonable amount. 85, 88 in total. It exhibits a category that we like to sell a lot of. We will find industrial commercial parts and take a look at what their value was new. And you can see this one has a little bit of staining and wear. So typically this might be called a open box or new old stock, and we'll describe it as having shelf wear, because that's what happens. Not all industrial parts are packaged. They're brought out in gaylords or loose bins, and the handling and simply storage of them roughs them up a little bit. So we take an item that was probably $100 new, we offer it at 2/3 that price, and people still see value in it. And while I'm packing it today, let me point out a couple of other tools. I keep a small scale handy right here on the bench, and over here I have a larger scale with a digital readout, my tape dispenser. And this is a pair of old shears. They're probably antiques. But if you look, they're much larger than a typical pair of household shears, which means I can cut paper for wrapping and bundle fill. I can cut cardboard with them if I'm not cutting too long. And they're just better in the hand. They don't cramp up. And they do a much better job. You might have found these in a tailor shop or a seamstress, and I have them in all my workbenches and all my shops because I think they work better than household scissors. Now here's your common utility knife, and here at the bench I'll use one of these. But this is a tool which looks similar, but it's one of my box resizers. On the other end of the knife is the wheel, the resizing wheel. And I put this to work probably daily resizing small boxes. For bigger boxes, I use a different tool, which I keep here under the bench. And it looks like this. It has a similar wheel, but it has a guide that's adjustable, and it does larger boxes in a similar manner. I find that resizing boxes routinely helps me keep the weight down under whatever the next step increment is. It means I use less packaging. And when you take an item like this, it doesn't really need all that much protection. It just needs to arrive in its destination. and be usable. These are glued on to the pipe that they'll cap. And as long as the buyer, probably a guy working in the trades, can use it, he'll be happy to save the money. Now here's another tool. I call these machinist rules or steel rules. When I'm taking photos, and I do occasionally, if you look here, I do occasionally use the bench right here for taking pictures of larger items, and it saves me from taking them to the photo station. I've got a couple of these. These are PVC, but they're similar to poster board. I got them at an auction, and I keep a couple of them leaned up right here. And if I want a white background, I simply drop one down onto the bench. If I don't care about the background, I use this blue sacrificial matting that covers my wooden bench, because I don't like to cut through and scratch up the bench. But I find that unlike rulers, which are always flexing around and get a little awkward as you're moving them in a photograph, I find that steel rules and yardsticks can be laid where you intend to take the photo and do a better job. Like, for instance, say I was going to do this antique boot scraper, which is sitting right here on the bench. It works a lot easier than trying to hold a tape measure with one hand while you work your camera and you worry about the glare coming off the overhead lights. So I keep steel rules in different lengths and yardsticks for doing flat lay measurements, and I think they work better than just having tape measures. Now this is the box I've selected to pack this item. This cap is just about 13 inches in diameter. Oh, that's probably about 4 inches deep. And this box happens to measure 14 1/8 by 12 3/8. So you can see that it's not quite long enough in one direction, but it's a little bit too long in the other. So what we're going to do is use our box stretching tool or technique, and we're going to make this a box that this item will fall in. Then we can take a look at the height and decide whether putting a little packing in fills that up nicely, or whether we should also shorten the height. Now this is a used box. It's in great condition. It's one of the criteria I use for deciding whether to reuse a box. It's a nice quality box, has some labels. We're going to go ahead and remove those labels using a heat gun. And I keep that heat gun hanging right there, so it's always handy. And I'll warm those labels up and peel them. And then I'll probably use some eBay tape to cover over any sticky residue. It's one of the things I like about keeping eBay tape around, and I use it for obscuring logos on boxes. It's spent the winter over outside in the garage, so in an unheated space, so it's not the best sticky tape anymore. So I just use a little bit more of it, tape it back on itself, and until I've used up this case, it'll become my go-to tape for covering logos I don't want visible. You can see the heat gun did its job, softened up the labels. I pulled them off, and then I took a look at the entire width of this box and divided that in half, which comes out to about 13 1/4, which should give me exactly what I need for shipping this item. It'll keep the weight to the minimum possible, and I'll go ahead and score it now and fold it. And I'll use this quick hand tool rather than the bigger box sizer, because with a little practice, you get pretty good doing this freehand. Now you can see we've begun assembling the box in its new size. Here's the score mark from the resizing tool, and we've basically shifted 1 inch of this side of the box over to this side. We've begun folding it up. A little bit of tape here helps hold it in place as we work it. We'll put another piece over here, and you'll notice that's a little bit, the flaps weren't quite big enough to cover this. So what we'll do is we'll drop a piece of cardboard down inside, which will help keep our shape. And then we'll use some of the 3-inch wide tape to make sure that the shipping is strong. And basically we're doing this because I did not have a suitable box. The biggest boxes I commonly stock new are 12 by 12. And this one, of course, needs a 13 by 13. Okay, so here you can see the original slits that extended the box's length. And here's a piece of scrap cardboard. We cut off a larger sheet, and that'll support the bottom for this larger box. Now, if it bothers you that there was a gap here, you can always take a little strip from your waste pile, you can see it here, and you can put it in as filler, and that way the tape won't ridge up quite so much. I did that just to show you a possibility. For an item like this, I wouldn't normally do that. I just cover it with tape. Now with the product in there, you can see that it's almost a perfect fit. The height is about an inch different. I don't think there's any reason to cut that down, but we can put it on the scale and check it against a size, weight, and distance, seller's destination, and decide whether or not it's worth the trouble. All right, you can see that without any packing, with the item in the box, and without it being taped up and labeled, this weighs 3 pounds, 14.6 ounces. So chances are we're not going to get that in under 4 pounds. So let's take a look at that. So we've put in the dimensions and the weight, 4 pounds. This box, the outside, is going to be about 14 by 14. It's a little under. And it'll be a little under 6 inches as it sits. Now, if we were to hit return, destination is the East Coast for me. So if we look, ground advantage is $13.28. And under all services, if we were to take a look at priority, would be $19. FedEx home is what we're looking for here because I have a FedEx office in my town. That home delivery, $14.52. So in this case, it's actually cheaper to send it ground advantage. So that's what we'll plan to do. Now, what we were asking ourselves is if we reduce this from 6 inches to 4 inches, would it make a difference? And you can see that it's a few cents. We might not even be able to get 4. Likely we'd have to use 5. $13.28. If we go to 6, it's $13.28. So it makes no difference whether we ship this as a 6-inch tall box or a 4-inch tall box. The only real difference, whether or not the extra padding would push it up over the 4-pound mark. And since we're under the 4-pound mark, I don't think it will. Now I've gone over to one of my bags of Big Bubble, grab some, and we'll just go ahead and fold this in here until we like it. Use it as void fill. In fact, that might be too much. We may have to tear it about right here and go with that. So now we've got her enclosed. We put another little piece of cardboard in there. Now we can decide whether or not to fill that piece or not, but we'll get her taped up, get the final weight. And we did not resize the height because it didn't make a difference. And we'll go ahead and print the label and get the label on it. Now, because this was a resized cut down box, I like to use a little extra tape. This is one of the score lines. So you can see I kind of reinforced this corner after making the bend. I also used the tape to obscure the original origin of the box, so you can see that. And let's get it weighed and print the label. So the final packed weight and size was 4 pounds 1 ounce, so you have to round up to 5. It was a bit over 13 by 13 by 5, so I made it 14 by 14 by 6. Ground advantage is still cheaper. Final price is $13.92, call it $14, to get this item from the West Coast up by Seattle to the East Coast. Now the last one of these I sold, destination was a lot closer to me, so shipping was about $9. So I actually made a little bit for my time packing. On this one, I'll lose a little bit. But this gives me the opportunity, since the quantity remains to be 2 additional caps, I can go ahead and adjust that shipping if I want to. And I can do that. And of course, items like this, I always have a quantity discount in the listings as well. So if people buy more, they save some, because I can ship 2 items in the box as fast as I can make a box to ship 1. In fact, if somebody were to buy the remaining 2, I would probably just go up in the storage area, grab the box, and ship it in the original box that these 4 came in. Cut it down to a height accommodating 2, and it would be gone without having to make a new box.